So again, my name is Andy Salis. I'm the Humane Educator for DuPage County Animal Services. I have a master's degree in behavioral science. I am a certified dog trainer, a shelter behavior affiliate, and I am also a certified force-free and fear-free animal trainer. So today I am going to be talking to you all about our cat friends. If you have any questions as we go along, if you just want to throw those up in the Q&A section, I will have time for questions at the very end. And I love questions, so don't hesitate to ask. But hopefully this presentation will cover a lot of information for you. So let's go ahead and get started. There we go. All right, so when we talk about cats, I approach cat body language and behavior discussions a lot differently than I do when I talk about dogs. And a lot of that has to do with how we have interacted with these animals historically and how we kind of view them in our current modern life. So before we get into specifics about behavior, I do want to focus a little bit on the human-cat relationship. So I'm sure when we think about cats and we think of them historically, we probably think about all of the times when cats have really been revered. So we certainly see that in Egyptian culture. We see them in hieroglyphics. We have seen them painted on mausoleums. We know that there have been times when we've really loved cats. And that's true, at least for some of our history. So in truth, when we really look at the human-cat relationship, it's been a roller coaster ride of ups and downs. And when we've needed cats, which has largely been when we relied on them to help reduce rodent populations around grain stores, we've revered them and we've absolutely loved them. But when we haven't needed them, or if there was a perceived issue surrounding cats, we kind of turned on them rather abruptly, and they've become reviled in certain periods of history. So we certainly see that. Again, if we look at Egyptian culture about 4,000 years ago, this is really when we first started having a relationship with cats, and we loved them. But even that was not entirely to their benefit. So what a lot of people don't know is that in early Egyptian culture, cats were actually mass bred. So we had commercial breeding all the way even back 4,000 years ago. And they were commercially bred so they could be euthanized to be mummified with wealthy individuals. So they could be entombed with them to go with them into the next spirit plane. So even when we've loved cats, it always hasn't been to their benefit. And when we've reviled them, it's really not been to their benefit. And from that, we've seen sort of a feline rumor mill that's been churning for hundreds, if not thousands of years. And some of these I'm sure we're all familiar with. So cats have been regarded as witches' familiars. So when we looked at the Salem witch trials and the witch trials that went on throughout Europe, cats were often burned at the stake right alongside the accused. They were imprisoned, they were drowned. They were not well loved. We've also heard the rumors about cats stealing a baby's breath. So we even see that to this day, working at a shelter, we see a lot of cats surrendered because new babies are coming into the home. And that's unfortunately a rumor that is persistent and to the detriment of the human-cat relationship. And then of course we've had those age-old superstitions of not letting a black cat cross your path. And these are all rumors that have persisted throughout history and have damaged the relationship that humans have had with cats. So it's definitely something that we like to discuss at DuPage, and we like to try to dispel as many rumors as we possibly can. So cats are certainly not unlucky, and they don't actually pose any real danger to infants either. Now, when we look at cats today, and kind of just in our more modern time, we really have to start focusing in the Victorian era. So that was about 150 years ago or so. And we really saw a turnaround on how we viewed cats, and that all had to do with Queen Victoria. So she loved herself some cats. She had many of them. Her favorite was a cat named White Heather. They were all domestic medium and long hairs, and she worshiped them. And as she fell more and more in love with her cats, she encouraged others to do the same. So she really made huge strides in improving animal welfare, particularly for our feline friends. And she was actually really the first individual that brought cats into a home. So up until about 150 years ago, we were maintaining a relationship with cats, but they were working for us more than being viewed as pets. So it wasn't uncommon to see them in rural settings. They were living on farms, and they were certainly kind of alley cats in more populated urban areas, but they were there to serve a function. So they were mousing for us, they were protecting grain stores, they were preventing rodents from entering our homes, but they really weren't considered pets or part of the family until Queen Victoria. And because she was so expressive in her love for cats, they were actually regarded as royal at that time. And so we started to see this more adoring viewpoint on cats starting in that Victorian age. So from there, they've actually grown in popularity, and they are really considered one of our most popular pets. So right now in the United States, we see about 94 million cats kept across the country as pets, most in their homes. So you can see some states are predominantly cat lovers, but for most of the country, we see a pretty even Steven split between cats and dogs. But cats do represent a higher number of pets in households than dogs do. Right now, we have approximately 60 breeds of cats recognized. That's a little vary depending on the registering organization. It ranges anywhere from about 48 to 75. So I kind of split the difference and went right around 60. So we have explored some variation in cats as well. But despite that, cats remain the second most surrendered animal in the country. And in some areas in the world, they're the #1 most surrendered pet when we talk about shelter intake. And a lot of that has to do with some misunderstandings between cats and humans. So I'm hoping to dispel some of those misunderstandings today. So let's go ahead as we explore cat behavior. Let's really take a look at where these behaviors are coming from so we can better understand our current cat friends. And the first thing that I like to address when we discuss cats is this question of whether or not they're really domestic. So we can be comfortable in saying that we have domesticated dogs. We can be comfortable in saying that we have domesticated rabbits and a number of other small animals. I'm so sorry about that. But when it comes to cats, there's actually a little bit of a question mark regarding their domestication. So to understand where our cats are coming from behaviorally, we have to take a look at where they came from originally. So when we're exploring their origins, I'd like to introduce everyone to Felis sylvestris libica. So this is the wild cat that is most likely the origin of all of the cats that we now know as pets. So this is an African wildcat. They still exist today. So if you travel to Africa, you can see them roaming through the savannah. And it is believed through genetic investigation and also just sort of through process of elimination that this is probably the origin of our current cat population that we see in households, because this cat is regarded as the most tameable wild cat. This particular type of cat demonstrates a predisposition to work with humans. So even if you encounter this feline in the wild, they are more inclined to approach and investigate you than they are to dart and run away like most other wild animals would be. So because of that, it is highly likely that when we saw that early infatuation with cats and that recognition of the work that they could do for us, that it was these particular wild cats that served as the origin for the development of the cats that we now know today. Now, knowing that, we have to really question how domestic are our cats. And the truth is, they're not really domestic at all. So cats have coexisted with humans for 4,000 years. And that does seem like a pretty lengthy chunk of time. But when we talk about that in an evolutionary timescale, that is a blink of an eye. So they really haven't been with us for very long at all, especially when we compare them to dogs, who we've really been working with for about 15,000 years now. Now, when we first started to interact with cats, again, they were really accepted by us and allowed into our areas because they did a job very well. So cats, if nothing else, are incredibly efficient hunters. And when they were hanging around human civilizations, there was a marked decrease in rodent populations, which was beneficial because it helped protect our food stores, and it also helped keep us healthy because rodents certainly can carry a number of pathogens that can infect humans. But we didn't really do a whole lot to further establish a relationship or better enhance the skills of the cat because they were already so efficient at hunting, and we didn't really look to them for companionship. There wasn't any artificial selection, so no forced mating by humans. So 96% of the cats were able to choose their own mates. So there's just a very small portion of intentional breeding. And that actually even rings true still today. We don't really have a ton of cat-specific breeders. And in fact, most cats that you see in households, certainly that you would see in shelters, they're the result of natural breeding where cats are choosing their own mates. So because of that, we haven't really influenced their behavior much at all. And that is in marked contrast to our dogs. So we all know that the gray wolf was the common ancestor amongst all of the dog breeds that we now know today. And I chose a very small graphic. This represents just about 1/10 of the dog breeds that we have known today. But you can see there's a wide amount of variety. And certainly we all know that dogs range from the teeniest, tiniest teacup Chihuahua to the largest Irish Wolfhound and everything in between. We have done a lot of artificial selection for dogs, some just for aesthetic reasons. So we're breeding for coat color, fur length, things like that, but also for different job functions. So we're breeding dogs for herding, for guarding, for scent detection, for hunting. We could go on and on and on. We've influenced dog behavior and dog conformation and appearance extensively in the amount of time that we've worked with them. Whereas cats, we really haven't done much at all. So this is just a small example of some of the variety that we see in cats. And really, when you look at it, we haven't influenced much. So we certainly have some brachiocephalic cat breeds, so those smush face kiddos. And we have definitely manipulated coat color and fur length. So things like long and medium hairs, those don't exist in nature. Especially the longer haired kids, that's not a natural thing. So we've definitely bred there for aesthetic reasons, but in terms of behavior, we haven't really looked to change anything at all because they were so efficient at doing the job we needed them to do right from the get-go. So when we think about our cats, we've asked them to change quite a bit in a very short period of time. So in about 150 years, cats really started to move up in the world, and they went from farmhouses to condos and townhomes and regular residential environments. And this was really one of the biggest shifts in the human-cat relationship. So we took an animal that we had largely regarded as a tool to do a job for us and then turned them into a beloved member of our family almost overnight. And we did all of this, again, without asking our cats to change at all. So very little artificial selection going on here, no intentional breeding or very, very little intentional breeding. So we were just taking those wild animals from outside that had learned to kind of cohabitate with us, and we were bringing them into our homes. So when we look at what is different about today's cats, there's a few things. So cats today, our domestic cats today, they do have an improved ability to form memories. They also are better able to form associations, particularly between stimuli and food rewards. So our cats today are actually highly trainable, which is a little bit different from some of their wild counterparts. Cats today also have less fear conditioning, so they're less inclined to have a flight response, especially around humans. They're going to be more engaged with us. And then physically, we certainly see a smaller body, a jaw, and brain. They have smaller adrenals, which is the gland that produces stress hormones that would engage an animal in a flight response, so that makes sense. Cats today also have lengthened intestines that they actually developed in direct correlation with living with people, because for so long they actually existed almost primarily off of table scraps. And so they had to develop a longer intestinal tract to kind of digest all of that roughage that they were being fed. And they have actually even developed narrowly spaced canines. So if you look at our cats' wild counterparts, their canines are a little bit wider apart, and that's because they're hunting larger prey. But our cats have gotten so adept at hunting the rodents that we wanted them to, that they have developed narrowly spaced canines to be more efficient at that job. Now, when we look at what hasn't changed, skull shape is one. So their heads may be smaller, but they're still shaped exactly like their wild origins. And if you actually compare the skull of a household cat to that of a lion, they are identical except in size. Mate selection also largely hasn't changed. So when we talk about cat populations across the world, we still see about a 96% free choice in mating versus controlled artificial selection from humans. And they're also still just as independent as they used to be. So when we talk about stray animals, for example, I am definitely more concerned about somebody's dog who has gotten out and their ability to take care of themselves in the wild than we are with cats. Cats are still highly independent and capable of providing for themselves. And then, of course, the biggest thing that has not changed in the 4,000 years that we have been working with cats is their behavior. So we have not done anything in regards to artificial selection to alter the behavior of these animals from wild to domestic and moving into our homes. And this is where we tend to run into some pickles in the human-cat relationship, because we think of our cats right along that same line as our dogs, but really their motivators are going to be quite different, and their responses to stimuli are also going to be markedly different as well. So when we think about our modern cat, we really have to think about all of the things that we ask of them in what is essentially an evolutionary blink of an eye. So it's only really been 150 years since cats have been brought into homes, and we're already asking them to go potty in a box. And sometimes we get a little crazy with those boxes too. We've covered them up, we put scented litter in them. Sometimes we hide them in dark corners of our house. We put them next to noisy things like washing machines and furnaces, or we hide them in fake potted plants and different pieces of furniture. That's a big ask. We ask our cats to sleep all night because we don't want to be bothered. We ask our cats to cuddle with us on the couch, and we ask them to stay off of counters. All things that are not necessarily inherent to their instinctive natural behaviors. On top of that, we've also asked them to decrease their territory from several hundred acres, which would be about natural for a wild cat of comparable size, to just the space within our own homes. So we've created a slippery slope for our domestic cat friends because we're really establishing a lot of unrealistic expectations for them. And as a result, cats are really in danger of becoming almost social pariahs again. So I'm certain, again, along with those feline myths that we've all heard, we probably all know someone who is adamant that they are a dog person only because cats don't do anything, or cats don't want to hang out with people, or they're no fun. We hear it all the time at the shelter. And really none of that is true. It's just that we're not understanding what our cats really are and how they need to behave and how we need to encourage some of those species specific behaviors. So what we like to try to fight against is the number of cats that we see surrendered to shelters every year. So in this country alone, we see about 3.2 million come into our shelter system each year. And unfortunately, about half of those cats end up being euthanized because there just aren't enough homes for them. So to help better establish a human-cat relationship and a quality bond with your pets, let's go ahead and we're going to dive in, and we're going to have a little bit of a crash course in cats. So when we talk about cats and behavior, it is all about that natural, inherent, instinctive lifestyle that they still want to lead because we haven't done anything to change that for them. And so when we look at this hunter's lifestyle, we want to follow the 3 R's, which is routine. So cats are going to have a routine around how they perform certain behaviors. And we're going to talk about that here in just a second, but there is a very specific way that they kind of outline and prioritize the activities that they're going to perform during a day. There's also ritual. So cats are highly ritualistic animals, and the way that they ritualize their behaviors will be different on an individual basis, but you'll find that your cat does have a process that they must go through as they perform each behavior, or a process that they go through before and after each behavior. And that's really important to their mental and physical well-being. And then rhythm is our final R, and that's really all about energy. So cats, and I'll use this analogy again here in just a minute, but they're very much so like little balloons. So you can think of them as sort of a deflated balloon. And then as the energy in their environment perks up, they inflate, inflate, inflate. And then they kind of burst and you get this big spurt of energy from them. And they really live their lives around that sort of rise and fall and energy in their environment. So when we talk about the routine that cats go through, and then the routine that they eventually develop rituals around, it all follows what's referred to as the HCKEGS cycle. Not really the best acronym. I think we could probably do better, but that is what we're working with in the behavior world for right now. And what that stands for is hunt, catch, kill, eat, groom, sleep. So this is the routine and the cycle of behaviors that we see cats go through. Now, the reason that cats are so ritualized in this routine that they have created is because, again, we're still dealing with what is by and large a wild animal. So their goal in life is to procure and consume food. And all of these behaviors, all the way from hunt, catch, kill, all the way to sleep, is all really surrounding this core idea of that hunt and that consumption of food. And understanding that can really help us all provide a better quality of life for our cats and reduce the likelihood of having any behavioral issues going forward. So let's go ahead and take a look at this cycle a little bit closer. So we're going to start by taking an in-depth look at that lion in your living room. And we're going to start with the first part of the cycle, which is hunt. So cats will hunt anything that is smaller than they are. And actually some bolder cats will even take on things a little bit larger as well, although that is a little less common. Now, when we look at our cats and their hunting preferences, we do see cats that are prey specialists, meaning that they're going to hunt only one or two specific things and only those things while showing little to no interest in anything else. Or you can have cats that are prey generalists, which means if it's smaller than them, they're going to get it. And they're not going to be too choosy about what they're going after. Now, when we're looking at our cat as a hunter, they are probably one of the most well-developed hunting machines in evolutionary history. Cats will rely on almost all of their senses when hunting, with the exception of taste and smell. They will rely on touch for up-close interactions, and their sense of touch is keen and highly developed. So they actually have nerve endings throughout the entirety of their body, but specifically concentrated in their paw pads and near every follicle of fur and near the core of every whisker. So that means that they are getting information from tactile stimulation 100% of the time. And they can be very sensitive and easy to overstimulate because they have all of those nerve endings that are there to kind of fire when prey is nearby. Cats also have a remarkable sense of vision when it comes to long distance vision. So they can see about 200 degrees around them when they include their peripherals, and they're especially adapted to track fast movements. However, cats have very fuzzy short range vision, which again is why they rely so heavily on touch for close interactions. They don't see so well up close, so they have to kind of feel their way around to get a sense of their environment. And then of course, cats also have very highly tuned hearing as well, especially adapted to hear high-pitched sounds, which makes sense, especially with our common household cats. They have been developing and evolving to hunt small rodents, so they are able to hear most particularly those high-pitched squeaks from mice and rats. Their ears are designed as funnels that can rotate around their head, so they can pick up sounds all the way around them throughout the environment. Now, they don't rely on their sense of smell when hunting, although their sense of smell is highly acute, but because of the prey that cats hunt, using scent to track isn't super effective. They'll utilize other strategies instead. And surprisingly, cats have a fairly underdeveloped sense of taste. So they don't have the full range of tastes that, say, we have, or even that dogs have, for example. Theirs is a little bit more muted, so they don't have that range of flavor perception that we do. Now, when we move on through that hunt, catch, kill, eat, groom, sleep cycle, our next step is the catch. And just like cats can demonstrate a prey preference, they can also demonstrate a hunting approach preference. So we have our ambush hunters, which are our cats in households that like to hide behind doors, for example, and then get you when you walk through. In the wild, these would be the cats that are hiding in bushes or tall grass, waiting for prey to come by so they can pounce on them. We have our stalk and rush hunters, and those are those cats that get lanky and long and low and stalk forward and then bound at the last moment to catch their prey. And then we have our patient predators. So these are going to be the cats that will hunker down right outside that mouse hole or that hole outside that the chipmunks dug, and they will wait there for hours and hours, waiting for that prey to pop their head up so they can get them. So just like you see that preference for prey type, there's going to be a preference for approach to prey as well. And in just a few slides, we'll get to why this information matters so much in building a relationship with your own cat. Now, once cats have caught, the next part of their cycle is the kill. And cats are notorious for playing with their food, which is also part of the reasons why humans have vilified cats, because when we see cats tossing around those poor defenseless mice, we think, oh, you monsters, how dare you? But it actually is an evolutionary adaptation. So cats will toss their prey around with the specific intent of tiring them out. So remember, cats are highly sensitive to tactile stimuli. They do even have nerve endings right at the roots of their teeth. So as they bite down on prey, if those prey items continue to twitch and wiggle, they will toss the prey in the air, let it run for a second and pounce on it again to tire it out, and then they'll re-administer a kill bite. And they'll continue that process until when they bite down, that prey is still. So this is a particularly effective strategy when they are going after larger prey items. So things like gophers and rabbits, for example, things that maybe our domestic cats in our area would encounter. And what we find is that they actually will perform this behavior less and less with age, which comes to just an accumulation of hunting expertise. So as they become more effective hunters, more adept at that perfect pounce and that kill bite, they'll stop playing with their food quite as much, simply because there isn't a need for them to do so. Now, after they have hunted, they have caught, and they have killed, this comes the favorite part for our cats, and that is eating. So remember, cats, being still largely wild animals, they are all about procuring and consuming food. So cats need to have that product of their hunt. They are obligate carnivores, which means that they must eat meat. So cats actually don't produce all of the amino acids that they need to build proteins essential for survival, so they do have to consume them. And this is something that we'll definitely be considering as we go forward in trying to enrich our cats' lives. We have to make sure they're getting a balanced diet. We also have to note that cats are not foragers. So with dogs, you'll hear a lot of enrichment ideas, all about scattering their food and making them search for it and sniff around, maybe have to fiddle with puzzles. Cats can do these behaviors, but they actually don't find them as enriching because it's not inherent to their natural behaviors. Cats don't forage. They hunt, catch, kill, and eat. So when we're trying to enrich our cats' lives, we can definitely consider that when we are trying to provide them with some species-specific behaviors. And so along that same vein, cats should not be allowed to graze on their food all day long. This can cause mental and behavioral issues, as well as physical and medical issues. So when you are looking to create a diet for your cat, again, keeping in mind that they're really not all that different from their wild counterparts, you want to find a diet that's as close to natural as possible. And of course, when doing that, I always advocate for conferring with your veterinarian to make sure that you're meeting all of your cat's nutritional needs. But generally, the goal is to find a diet that is high or only consisting of meat. And of course, you have a lot of varieties available that go from raw, cooked, and canned foods. And normally we would include kibble on that list, but especially over the last decade or so, there has been a substantial amount of research that has been done, and all of the results indicate that we need to move away from dry food for our cat's mental and physical well-being. It's not natural for them to eat that dried kibble, and it's not natural for them to consume it the way that we often lay it out by filling up a bowl and allowing them to nibble throughout the day. Now, after cats have performed that primary function, that eat function that they love so much, they're still not done with their daily cycle. So after they've hunted, they've caught, they've killed, and they've eaten, now it's time to groom. So this is a very functional behavior in their wild counterparts. And cats are obsessive groomers, both our household cats and their wild cousins, for very specific reasons. Some of them are obvious. So of course, when we groom, they're keeping their coats clean, but they're also reducing risk of parasites, and they're ridding the scent of past kills. So you'll see this quite frequently after your cat has enjoyed a good meal. They're gonna spend some time grooming, particularly on their front paws and around their face, because they're trying to reduce the scent of their kill that they just consumed. And that is because in the wild, cats are still also going to be prey. So they act as both in an ecosystem, especially our smaller cats. They're going to prey upon items smaller than them, but animals larger than them will prey on them. So after they've caught, killed, and eaten, they need to wash away that evidence so they don't attract other predators. By grooming, they're also strengthening their own personal scent, which is highly important for cats because they use their personal scent to mark territory, as well as mark animals or humans that they deem part of their family. Now, a lot of times at the shelter, we get this question from new adopters, does my cat need a bath? And the answer is absolutely not. Unless your cat has a medical condition, so something that requires medicated baths, or has recently been skunked, for example, there is no need to bathe them ever. So bathing can be a very distressing experience for our cats, not only just because they're not usually big fans of water, but because of what it's damaging. So it can damage the oils on their skin and fur, which can lead to discomfort in your cat. And it also erases their personal scent. Now remember, they're gonna spend a lot of time working on building up that personal scent through the grooming that they do. And in a single bath, we can wash away all of that hard work. And that can be very distressing for a cat. So that's definitely something that we want to avoid unless we absolutely have to. So at the shelter, for example, we often have to bathe young kittens just because they've just made a mess of themselves, especially when they're learning to eat. And we certainly encounter cats that have skin issues that require medicated baths. But outside of that, we will not bathe a cat. If necessary to clean up small messes, we advocate for using unscented baby wipes to do a cleanup job if necessary. All right, so after our cats have hunted, caught, killed, eaten, and groomed, the next part of their day is going to be all about that beauty rest. And this is actually where we can dispel another myth about cats. So there is this perception that cats just laze about and sleep all day long, but they actually don't. They don't sleep that much at all. So there was a 2009 study that was conducted that found that cats only sleep about 6% of their day. So what occurred is they actually used cats in households, so established cats in households, and they were all fitted with radio collars that basically allowed the researchers to monitor where the cats were going in the house and also monitored heart and respiratory rate so they could tell when they were awake and when they were sleeping. And not only did they find that they only slept about 6% of their day, they were able to pinpoint exactly what our cats are doing when we're not there to pay attention to them. And what they found is that most of the time, cats were watching what cat behavioralists fondly refer to as cat TV, meaning that they were looking out windows, likely tracking prey items. So again, we're still going back to those wild instinctive needs. They're watching birds, squirrels, and depending on the height of their home, they may even be tracking people outside if they look small enough from a distance. Now, when we look at how they spend the rest of their time, this is the general breakdown. So they spend about 21% of their time watching cat TV, about 11% hanging out with other animals if they're available, 5% playing with toys, 4% drinking, and 50% grooming, which again stresses the importance of that groom for a cat and further stresses why we shouldn't be bathing them. They do a pretty good job of keeping themselves clean, so we really want to let them do that because they're really experts at tidying up their own fur. Now, why does this all matter? So we've gone through the hunt, catch, kill, eat, groom, sleep cycle for cats. And we can really bring it all home by tying each one of these steps in their cycle to ways that these animals are behaving in our homes and potential conflicts that we might be facing with them. So really, the reason that we want to consider the hunt, catch, kill, eat, groom, sleep cycle is so we can help our cats live their absolute best lives inside of our homes. So to do this, we have to get back to our basics. So we have to think about our routine, ritual, and rhythm with our cats. So first and foremost, I would task all of you with, well, you're all probably home right now. Most of us are home a lot of the time. So great, use that opportunity and observe your cats. So watch how they move through this cycle and see if there's any areas that perhaps they're not fully exercising a step. So are they able to exercise their hunting instincts? And that doesn't have to be by letting them outside, which I advocate strongly against, but it can be through simulated play in your home. You know, are they allowed to catch, kill? What are they eating? Are they allowed ample time to grooming for grooming? Are we interfering with that? What does their sleep cycle look like? It's a good idea to know what your cat is actively demonstrating now, and then you can pinpoint areas in which you can improve the home for your cat, the enrichment opportunities for your cat, and ultimately build a better bond. You'll be able to identify preferences and aversions. So even when we go back to that hunt, catch, kill, eat, groom, sleep cycle, again, I mentioned hunting, we see prey specialists and prey generalists. So even when we talk about food choices, you may find that you're going to find a cat that is a specialist and only really wants one or two specific things versus a cat that's a generalist and is really craving variety in their diet. You can also help your cat out, again, by thinking through that rhythm aspect of the 3 R's. Remember, they're all about energy. So you have to pinpoint times of high energy in your own home, not just directly related to the cat, but for yourselves and for your family. When are you up and moving around? So one prime example I give almost every cat guardian that I work with, because a common complaint that I've heard is my cat keeps me up all night long, is that we're not providing enrichment for them in the evenings. And think about the energy level in your house before everyone goes to bed. So we're getting up off the couch, for example, if we were watching TV, we're getting changed into our jammies, we're brushing teeth, washing faces. If there's kiddos, there might be stories being read, kids are getting tucked in. That's actually a lot of activity. So even for us, that's winding down. For the cat, that's gonna start charging them up. So that's a good time to insert some enrichment in there, give them something to do so we can lay down and go to sleep. Now, once you've identified your cat's natural cycle and you've pinpointed the energy, the high energy times in your home, and maybe been able to observe some areas of that cycle that your cat is lacking in, you can really start to identify key issues that you're having. So do you have a cat that is demonstrating erratic behavior, going through some extreme highs and lows, for example, or perhaps soliciting attention and then turning around and biting, which is something we see pretty commonly. Are they up all night long? Are they generally just nippy and sort of defensive when you want to touch them? Are they constantly on the counter? We can look at all of those issues and tie them right back to that hunt, catch, kill, eat, groom, sleep cycle and identify potential alternatives for those behaviors for our cat so they can stay happy and healthy and we can feel happy about them being in our homes. So this will also help us build a better bond with our cats. So I'm sure everybody watching has probably fallen prey to the belly rub trap. So this is actually my cat pictured right here. She does look a little menacing in this photo, I suppose, but she's flopped over. She's laying in bed with us. She's showing us the belly. And I'm sure we've all fallen prey to that. That belly looks so soft. We want to reach out and touch it, right? But when we go in for that cuddle, we get a sharp reprimand from our cats, usually involving claws and teeth. So we have to think about why that might be, and we can go back to the hunt, catch, kill, eat, groom, sleep cycle for our answers. So remember, our cats are highly adapted hunters, and they have nerves at the tip of every fur follicle, every whisker. So they are very easily overstimulated. So we'll talk about a few other reasons why cats show us their bellies, but just in general, if you find that you're petting, and the cat is purring and rubbing and loving you, and then all of a sudden you've got teeth on your hand, they're overstimulated. So it was too much. And for cats, it's a very fine line from just enough to over the top. So it's something that we definitely need to pay attention to. So I will almost always advocate, with rare exception, because there are a few kittens out there that like it, but that we never touch our cats' bellies, and that when we do pet our cats in general, we follow the pet pause rule. So pet for 2 seconds, pause, even if it's just for a second or two, allow your cat to solicit attention again, and then pet. That prevents our cats from getting overly stimulated. It allows them to walk away if they are feeling a little over threshold. And it also allows them the choice to continue to ask for affection, which is very important for our highly independent cats. Now, along those lines, I hear a lot of folks tell me that when they're petting their cats, they get a lot of love bites. So those gentle nips. I unfortunately have to dispel that rumor. There is no such thing as a love bite. So animals do not use their teeth to express love. All bites are in fact warnings. Now, if they're gentle and we just feel that pressure, all that cat is telling you is, I need a minute. And we see that a lot with cats that are receiving attention from humans. So they're doing that rub against your hand, and they might be twining between your legs or flopping on your lap. And so you're getting into that petting, and then there's that firm pressure of teeth on your hand. Again, going back to their cycle, they're finely tuned hunters that are highly sensitive to touch. So they are enjoying your touch, but they need a pause. And that's what those teeth are there to tell you. It is, please stop for just a second, and then you'll often find they'll remove the teeth and they'll ask you to pet them again. They just need that quick microsecond break to steady themselves and prevent themselves from going over threshold. So unfortunately, all teeth on your skin are in fact warnings, even if they are gentle ones. So we have to make sure that we're watching for subtle signs. So as you're petting your cat, if you see them tremble a little bit underneath your touch, they're starting to get overstimulated. They might demonstrate slight piloerection, so their fur will start to stand up. That's a sign of overstimulation. Pupils may dilate, tail may start to twitch a little bit. Those are all subtle signs that they need a break, even if it is just for a few seconds. And as always with cats and any animal, I have to advocate for respecting that bite. We don't want to punish our cats for giving us those gentle warnings, because then they're just going to escalate. We just have to respect it, remove that stimulation, and allow them the agency to either choose to continue that interaction or to get up and move away from us. Now, carrying on with that cycle and meeting our cat's needs, we also have to, again, go back to that energy balloon analogy. And think about how cats use that buildup of energy in their natural environment. So cats in the wild will sleep that 6% of the time, almost always in one long stretch, which is why in our household cats, we think they sleep all the time, because being nocturnal animals, they're going to do that big 6% stretch, usually during the day. So to us, they look a little bit lazy, but they're actually animals preparing for a hunt. So what cats will do is they sleep, and then they animate. They tend to be highly aroused, and now they're ready for action. Now, by bringing cats into our household, we have altered that schedule a little bit. So cats kind of filling that energy balloon and building, ready to explode, can be highly influenced by our household activity levels, and can actually fill to just bursting. And without an appropriate outlet, this can lead to a lot of over threshold behavior. So this is where we get cats that are acting erratically, darting all over the house, especially in the middle of the night. Cats maybe that are choosing to kind of attack us a little bit, whether it's in play or in all seriousness. This usually has to do with an overinflated energy balloon. So that's why it is important, again, keeping that cycle in mind when we're preparing enrichment for our animals, It's a great idea to provide it during those high energy times. So for an example, with my own kitten, obviously our mornings are busy. I also have 3 dogs running around, so our mornings are very busy. So I get up, I brush my teeth, I shower, I get dressed. The dogs have been outside at this point. And then before I feed her, I know that I now have a very full energy balloon because there's been a lot of motion in this house. So I know that, and I know she naturally needs to release that energy, and her natural instinctive way to do that is to hunt, which is nice and convenient for me because here comes her breakfast as well. So before she actually gets her food, we're going to emulate a hunt for her. So before every meal, my cat gets 10 to 15 minutes of playtime, whether that's with a wand, a laser, some small mouses and other toys that we have around the house. And then once she's managed to catch that animal, then I put her food down, and then she gets to eat, and then she can follow her groom sleep cycle, and she can rest while we go on about our day. So it's a good idea to consider that and think of your cat as an energy balloon when you're trying to provide them with stimulation and enrichment that's appropriate for them. You really want to do that during those high energy times. Now, I hear all the time, but my cat doesn't play. Every cat will play, I promise you. It just might take a little bit more effort and investigation on your part. So play needs to be a structured activity. Remember, cats are highly ritualized. So whenever possible, if you can provide that at specific times during the day, again, high energy times are great. And if you can provide it near meal times, that's even better. So you can allow your cat to mimic that hunt, catch, kill behavior before they receive their food. That really allows them to successfully complete the cycle that they have an instinctive need to complete. When you are playing, you want to make sure that you're playing in a predictable manner, and that is going to relate to the movements that you make. So when I've worked with cats in their homes, I'll have owners tell me that their cat doesn't play, and so I ask them how they're playing with their cats, and they get that wand out and they're zipping all over the place like crazy. Well, of course your cat doesn't want to play with that. The cat doesn't really know what that is. So we have to think about how a cat's prey item might move in the wild. So I always tell everyone to be the bird. So remember, cats are going to track rapid fluttery movements, especially at greater distances. So when we start to play with our cats, we actually don't want to bring that toy right up to them. We want to stay a little bit of a distance away because that's where they're going to be able to track the movement easiest. So when I have a wand, I'll bounce it up and down a little bit, sort of a fluttering motion on the ground, and then I'll swoop it into the air like a bird taking flight. I'll bring it back around, bounce it on the ground again like a bird hopping about looking for food, and then we swoop up again. And that will always get my cat's attention and get her engaged in some play. And once she's in it, then I can make the movements a little bigger. I can travel a little further and have her follow that movement and get a good amount of exercise and an ability to demonstrate those natural behaviors. So when we are talking about play with cats, cats will play, we just have to do it correctly. Now, when we are playing too, I always like to stress that play should most definitely include you. So there are tons of toys out there that we just flip a switch and we get a lot of automatic motion. And I'm not saying rule those out. I have plenty of those in my own house, and that definitely represents a small part of my cat's enrichment for the day. But if we want to build that bond with our animal, we really want to get to know them, the play should include us. That also lets us really monitor our cat's preferences. So if we flip a switch on a toy and walk away, we never really know a lot about our cats. So what is their hunting style? Are they ambush predators? Are they stalk and rush predators? Are they patient predators? Because that natural inclination can let us know a lot more too about how we should approach them for playing. But if we're not there, we can't know that. And then we also can't have those positive associations between that exhilaration of the hunt and then ultimately the feast that follows. They're not going to associate that with us, which is one of our best tools to increase the likelihood of a strong bond between us and our cats. So make sure that at least some of the time you are an active participant in your cat's play. Now with that, I did already mention laser pointers there very briefly. I'm not sure if anybody caught that, but I get the laser pointer question asked to me a lot when I do encourage folks to play with their cats. And that is it even okay to use the laser pointer? So there actually has been a lot of research on laser pointers and cat behavior. And my answer to the question of if it is okay to use that laser pointer is yes. but with a stipulation. So a cat can absolutely find joy in hunting that laser that they're going to see tracking along on the floor or the walls or however you choose to play with your cat. But it can be frustrating and can actually cause the development of behavioral problems if the cat is not able to fully exercise their entire cycle. So they can hunt a laser, but they can't catch and kill it. So if you want to incorporate laser pointers into your play with your cat, you have to have an alternative toy on hand. So I will sometimes use a laser pointer with my cat, and she'll zip around and she'll chase it. And right as she's about ready to pounce on it, I'll toss a catnip mouse down there. So she has something that she can grab and kill bite. Or after a few minutes of playing with the laser, I break out the wand toy. So she can then complete that hunt, catch, kill cycle by grabbing onto the dangling wand toy and biting down on it and getting herself all tangled up in it. That's going to give her that full satisfaction of the hunt. And then again, I often structure my playtimes right around her meals. So after she's caught that toy and I know that she's getting a little tuckered out, that's when I'll put her food down for her. Or if we're playing maybe at night, that's when I will then toss a couple treats on the ground for her as well. So she has that full satisfaction of hunt, catch, kill, eat, and then she's free to groom and sleep at her leisure. Now, when we are talking about play, there are some strict do's and don'ts. So the do's we've covered, but we'll just review here. Make sure you're maintaining structure. Predictable movements are absolutely necessary. And you really want to allow your cat to process through that entire hunt, catch, kill, eat, groom, sleep cycle. So make sure your movements are mimicking prey, but also make sure that you're providing that kill experience. So your cat will need something to grab a hold of and bite down on to release all of that energy and to decrease the likelihood of frustration building in your cat, which can ultimately lead to some over threshold or negative behaviors that we don't want to see our animals demonstrating in a home. Now, the don'ts, again, don't rely completely on automative or interactive toys. They can certainly be a component of your cat's play, but they shouldn't represent the entirety of it. Don't attempt play when your cat balloon is deflated. So when your cat's already gone through that busy day, if it's sort of a lull, especially mid-afternoons, for example, that's going to be the time when your cats are most likely in that sleep portion of their cycle. So we don't want to try to instigate play then, because of course they're not going to want to engage with us. So you want to make sure you're pairing that with the high energy rhythm of your household. And again, ideally around meal times as well. Now you also want to make sure that you're not pushing your cat over threshold. So you want to allow your cat time to exercise their natural behaviors. And you certainly want them to be able to burn off extra energy, but respect when your cat is tired and when they're starting to flop down and they're not really engaging in that chase, allow them a quick catch kill and then move on. And of course, I want to always stress that we don't want to engage with our cats in highly aggressive type of play. So we don't want to be wrestling with our cat, putting our hands on them, because that's going to encourage them to kind of up the ante a little bit, and they're going to reciprocate in kind. So we want to make sure that all of our play does directly involve toys, so they know where that outlet should be directed towards. So when they're feeling energetic and they're feeling a little zesty, they go for the toys and not for our hands or feet. And then of course, make sure you're not denying your cat the thrill of the catch. So humans are competitive, and I see this in all sorts of human animal play where we feel this need to win. So we don't let our cats catch the wand toy. We snatch the mouse away from them before they grab it. Make sure you allow them to complete that cycle. They need to catch, they need to kill bite. Or one, we're just being mean. And then two, we're gonna frustrate our cats and cause other behavioral problems that we don't want to see in our homes. Now, when we are combating common behavioral issues with our cats, the best way to find a solution is to reach a compromise. So again, we are largely living with little tiny wild animals that we have brought into our homes. So we have to set realistic expectations for them, and we have to be able to meet them in the middle when we're talking about behavioral disagreements. So every time you give your cat a no, so no, you may not, you have to follow it by a yes. So always think about that when you're approaching your cat's behavioral issues. If there's a no, figure out a way that that behavior can be demonstrated in a way that's not going to irritate you or ruin your home. So always be looking for a compromise which is going to mean an acceptable substitute for that behavior. So to do this, you have to be empathetic to your cat's needs. So again, we brought a wild animal into our homes. We have to be able to manage that and provide them outlets for their natural behaviors. So, for example, with a cat that is on the counters constantly, and I know that is a big battle for a lot of cat guardians. My cat loves countertops. So to get them off the counter, if that is your goal, you have to think about what a compromise could be. So first and foremost, I always tell everyone, if you've got a counter surfing cat, make sure there's no rewards up there for them. So if they're getting up on the counters, make sure there's no food up there, because if they can find food, that's rewarding. They're going to keep coming back, and that behavior will never stop as long as there's food available to them on that counter. It just isn't going to work because food is their primary driver. So we have to make sure we're eliminating that, but we also have to think about their natural instinctive behaviors. So cats, in addition to demonstrating preferences over prey and hunting styles, will demonstrate preferences in where they like to be in terms of their territory. So some cats are cave/bottom dwellers, so you'll see them a lot tucking themselves under the couches or under the beds. They like to hang out in those little tiny cat tents and things like that. They like to feel kind of in a dark, confined space. That's where they get cozy. But a lot of cats more commonly prefer to be up in the air. So they're going to be more arboreal. They're going to want to climb to feel safe. And that's where a lot of that counter climbing comes in. They want to be in the center of action. So kitchens are usually a hub of activity in homes, especially as people are coming in after work. We're grabbing snacks, we're preparing dinner, maybe kids are sitting down to do homework. It's a hub of activity. Cats want to be right in it. And most cats are comfortable up off the ground. So they get on our counters, which we're not big fans of. So we have to understand that that's a natural instinctive behavior for our cat. And we have to find a compromise. So no, you may not be on the counter, but yes, you may be on this cat tree that I have positioned strategically to allow you to view all of the activity going on in the kitchen. So for that no, we have found a compromise and provided the cat with a yes. And that can reduce the likelihood of that undesired counter climbing behavior. Now, we can also work on training our cats. And yes, it can be done. I hear all the time that cats cannot be trained, but they certainly can. You just have to identify what motivates your cat. So for dogs, it's so easy. So it can be food, it can be play. And for a lot of dogs, it's even just us. You know, an attaboy goes a long way in the dog world. It's not going to be the case for cats. Their motivators are not us. So sorry, even if you have the best bond in the world with your cat, you're not the motivator for them to perform a behavior. That's just not how they're wired. So again, we have to keep in mind, we didn't do a lot of artificial selection here. We have not bred cats to have a desire to interact and bond with us. So we've got to work with the tools that we're given, and cats want food. So and it might be a particular type of food. So I definitely deal with a lot of cat guardians that tell me I try to train my cat and they don't like their treat, so they won't work with me. That's okay. They may not like that treat. They may be a prey specialist. You have to find the right prey item for them to consume. And you can do that just through a lot of trial and error. I'm lucky, my cat eats everything. So she is definitely a prey generalist. But when I work with cats at the shelter, we definitely see some that are specialists, and we go through a little bit of trial and error, and usually we'll even play food preference games for them. So we'll line up different food options and see which ones they go to first. And then we make that notation that that is a highly valued item for them, and we'll utilize that for training. So you can definitely do the same at home, and we call that creating a jackpot. So once you've identified that super special thing that your cat loves above all else, you reserve it and use it only for training times. So your cat's going to be willing to work pretty darn hard to get that preferred food item from you. So you just have to identify it and then create that jackpot and provide them opportunities to win it. Now, the last part that we want to focus on when we're talking about demystifying our cats is the language that they utilize. Now, when I talk about dog body language and behavior, I will run through slide upon slide of very specific behavioral body language cues that our dogs give us. For cats, I spend a little less time on it because I find that generally speaking, cats can be very clear with their body language, how they are feeling and how they're perceiving their environment and our presence in their environment. But we definitely want to talk about a few key things that we can look for in trying to assess our cat's current state of mind. So the big things that I always advocate for everyone to be looking at for their cats are their eyes, ears, and tails. So these are the most expressive parts of our cats' bodies. Cats don't usually give you full body language signals. That's something that we see more often in dogs. Cats can be a little bit more discreet in regards to the body parts that they use to convey emotion. So when we're talking about our cat's ears, you can definitely see some of our examples right here. So if you see your cat's ears high and erect and rotating, often rapidly, that is a cat that is very alert. So this is a fully charged energy balloon. This is a cat that's got either something actively going on in their environment or they're looking for trouble to get into. So this is definitely a cat that we would want to engage and maybe play with at this time. This is a cat that is ready to burst. So we've got to give them an outlet for their energy. If their ears are up but relaxed and stay forward instead of rotating, this is a calm, confident cat. This is the ear position that we most often want to see in our cats as they're strutting their stuff through our house. That means they're comfortable in their environment. They feel like they are the king or queen of their household and they're feeling pretty good about their lives. If we see a cat with flattened ears, so when we see the pinna completely folded down against the skull, that is a cat that is either angry or fearful. And we can assess further that behavior by looking at the rest of their body, including eyes, tail, and even some of their more subtle body language. Now, when we come to eyes, cats have very, very expressive eyes. So when we see our cats with their pupils, all narrow and restricted. So they look like just little tiny slits like we see right here. That is a cat that is highly focused and usually those really restricted pupils, again, considering for light as well, because that's going to have an impact on it. That's usually a cat that is ready to engage in typical attack-like behaviors. So as they get that heightened state, it actually causes blood vessels to restrict in their eyes and causes their pupils to narrow quite significantly. So you might see this sometimes in play with your cats if they're getting very intent on that object that they are hunting, but we'll often see this when cats are ready to make a pretty firm statement about how they feel about us being in their area. So it's definitely something to pay attention to. Now, in contrast, when their pupils are very large and dilated, that means that your cat is stimulated. So it could be that they are fearful, which again, we'll interpret through the rest of their body language. It could be very excited. So if your cat's really happy to see you or on meal times, you might see those sort of wide blown out pupils. And it can sometimes indicate anger. So if you see your cat pin its ears and the tail starts twitching and the pupils dilate a bunch, that's a warning. And then you'll see the pupils constrict when they're getting ready to do something about that frustration. And then lastly, and I will actually show a quick clip of this in just a moment, cats will demonstrate their love for us most clearly through their eyes. So when they maintain eye contact with you and they start to slow blink, so just a really slow rise and fall of those eyelids, that is a cat displaying comfort, relaxation, and general adoration for whomever is in their presence and is the recipient of that nice slow blink gaze. Now, cats can also tell us quite a bit through their tails. So we won't go through all of these, but you can see all of the different postures that a cat can achieve with their tail to demonstrate different behaviors. So some of the ones that we want to see would be this nice upright tail here. The one thing I don't like about just these drawings is that it makes this tail look a little stiff. But when a cat is really happy to see you and they're confident in their environment, the tail's going to be upright, but as they walk, it'll sort of wave back and forth like a flag. So that's a loose, comfortable cat. You might see some tension in the tail and a more erect tail if they're super crazy about you. So my cat will do this from time to time, and those are my favorite times all day long, is she'll run up to me and she stops and that tail gets really stiff and then it vibrates back and forth really rapidly. That is cat speak for I am nuts about you and I am so excited that you are here to hang out with me. If you see cats with their tails almost petting themselves, sort of sliding back and forth on their body from side to side, that's a cat that's feeling a little bit loving, probably looking for some cuddles. So those are some things we definitely want to see with our cats. What we really want to avoid are the other extremes. So the I'm scared and the I'm mad. You can see they both involve piloerection, so that poofiness of the tail. Anger, frustration is usually demonstrated by that stiff upright tail that's now going to be poofed out to 2 or 3 times its normal size. Scared, you're going to see that same piloerection, but the tail is going to be stiff and down, sometimes even tucked under their belly if they're very worried. Now, before cats get there, their tail can be very telling. So if they're starting to get scared, you'll see that tail drop down a little bit. So that's a good tell that your cat is moving towards that I'm scared thought process. So we'd want to definitely address their environment. Whereas if they're getting a little irritated or angry with us, where we're going to start to see this almost Halloween looking cat as a result, they actually start to tap their tail against whatever surface they happen to be sitting on. Just like we might drum our fingers if we're a little frustrated or irritated, cats will do the same thing with their tail. So when you see just that tip start to bounce back and forth, that's a good sign that your cat's annoyed with something and we need to change their environment. If that signal is not heeded, they get a little more dramatic with the tail lashing, and then eventually we'll have a full-fledged angry cat on our hands. So we definitely want to avoid that. So just to go through some general body postures to put that all together, I figure we'll start with looking at what an unhappy cat looks like, which I do feel like most people can identify pretty readily. Their body language is pretty direct. So you're going to see a lot of eye contact when a cat is upset. They don't like to turn away, so their focus is going to be very much on you if you are the source of their displeasure. Their body is going to be tense. You'll often see a lashing tail before ultimately it stiffens in either that upright or down position. Their eyes will be wide, and you might hear vocalizations like growling or hissing. Now, when you're trying to determine if this is a cat that is angry and on the attack, or a cat that might be fearful or stressed and feeling defensive, it's all going to be about how they distribute their body weight. So if you see weight over the forehand, like we have in this very fearsome black kitten that's pictured on the slide, that is a cat that is on the attack. So we've got that piloerection along the tail that arched back to make himself look bigger. We've got those ears, they're rotating off to the side. So they were probably rotating around like this to indicate his alertness. We've got full dilated pupils. He's opened his mouth to show you his teeth. He's probably vocalizing as well. This is an angry cat. Now, the poor little tabby here, also pictured on the side, this is a cat in a defensive position. So she's a little bit more fearful. So we still see that piloerection, but you can see most of her body weight is actually over her haunches. So she's ready to spin and run if she can, but she's definitely feeling a little bit distressed about whatever it is that's in front of her. So she's going to hold that same direct gaze, but she's going to lean way back in hopes of trying to get away from whatever it is that has caused that sensation for her. Now, hopefully, this is the cat that we all get to see the most. So when we talk about cats wanting to love on us a little bit, for them, true love is all about the smell and the eyes. So there is a reason that your cat rubs all over you. They are sharing their personal scent that they spent so much time grooming to develop, and they're gonna rub it all over you because they're identifying you as family. So you and your cat's eyes are the same as them, and they want you to smell the same as them. And then of course, when we're loving on our cats and we're snuggling with them and they're hanging out with us, those eyes are going to show their appreciation and adoration. So that slow blink is absolutely everything. You're going to get a lot of direct eye contact from your cat. Let's see if I can get this video to play. So this cat is in love with his handler. So you see that slow blink where the eyes don't quite close all the way. They just kind of squint and open up and squint and open up. And you'll notice that when the cat starts this behavior, he doesn't turn his head away. So there's a lot of direct eye contact, and you're going to get that nice slow blink when your cat is content and loving on you. And one of the best things that we can do to acknowledge that and reciprocate is just return the favor. So practice your own slow blinking. You can slow blink to your cat to demonstrate your mutual affection. Slow blinking can also work in some cases to calm a stressed cat down. So it's a good skill to practice and utilize with your cats. All right, and then one of the last cats that we want to take a look at is the confident cat. So the cat pictured here on the slide is demonstrating relaxed body language. So we've got comfortable forward motion, an upright but loose tail. So that's that happy to see you cat that would have that tail sort of waving in the breeze as he struts his stuff. This is a cat that's definitely in touch with his raw primal self. His needs are being fulfilled. His instinctive behaviors are supported. Whoops, sorry, skipped ahead a little bit there. And he's feeling pretty satisfied with himself. So you can see that the ears are up. He's checking out his environment a little bit. They're rotating off to the side, but there's not an ounce of tension in this body. And so this is what we're hoping to see in all of our cats as they strut around in our house, that nice, relaxed, lanky movement as they are showing off their confident, cool selves. Now, one of the last things I wanted to touch on was some of our communication mysteries with our cats. So cats can be very clear about their body language and how they're feeling, but they also do a few things that are highly confusing to us. So I wanted to go through a couple of them. The first is the rear view. I'm sure we have all experienced this as cat lovers. We're petting our cats, they're loving on us, we're getting some of those delightful head rubs and chin boops, and then all of a sudden their back end is in our face and we think, why are you spoiling such a wonderful moment, right? But for cats, that is one of the truest signs of friendship there is. So remember, cats are all about that personal smell. They spend hours grooming themselves to spread their own smell throughout their body. They'll actually spend a significant amount of time in their homes rubbing that scent, especially in prized areas or on certain pieces of furniture where they like to lounge. They smear their scent everywhere. And where their scent is strongest is on their backside. So when they love us and they want to be friends and they want to include us as part of their family, they want to show you where their scent is. So they want to let you learn all about them. And so they're going to show you where their personal scent is strongest. And that's on the rump. So that's why we get that rear view. Cats will often do this as a greeting. So when we first come home, or I'm sure many of us are victim to this view when we first wake up in the morning and the cat's running around on our chests and all of a sudden their bottom is in our face when we can't get away. That's just their way of saying good morning. So while it is unappealing, we want to make sure that we don't punish this because that can actually be damaging to our cat's confidence. So if you can politely pat the bed beside you and ask the cat to move along or offer some pets a little further away from your face, you want to gently encourage them to move away, but we certainly don't want to make a big deal out of it because this is a behavior that we may not appreciate, but we should want to see because that means our cats are comfortable with us and consider us a part of their family. Now, the other common misunderstood signal from cats is that exposed belly. And we talked about that a little bit, but we've all seen cats do this, right? So maybe they're rubbing on our legs even, then all of a sudden they flip over, they give us the big doe eyes, they show us the softest, floofiest belly on the planet, and then we try to pet them and we lose a finger. That's a really common complaint amongst cat guardians. But cats, again, we have to remember that hunt, catch, kill, eat, groom, sleep cycle. They are really tactily defensive because they get so much stimulation. So even for cats that do enjoy belly rubs, and there are cats out there that do, usually just a couple pets and they're good to go because they're going to get overstimulated. But for most cats, that exposure to the belly is just a sign of friendship. So they're saying, hey, I like you. I'm super comfortable with you. This is me at my most vulnerable self. Look at this trust I have for you. And then we reach forward and we put our hands on their belly and we violate that trust, which then gets us a reprimand with claws and teeth. So even though that belly is super cute and it looks like it's just asking to be rubbed, unless you've got one of those rare cats that has actually developed an affection for belly rubs, we need to stay hands off so we can respect our cat's personal space. And also understand their own language. So they are trying to communicate with us in a very friendly way, and we want to make sure we're reciprocating appropriately, which would mean not touching that belly. Now, the last communication mystery that I wanted to touch on is the almost empty bowl panic. So that is something I've heard countless cat guardians complain about. My cat has a full bowl of food. He's just eaten through the center of it and he can see the bottom of the bowl, and then he starts screaming. Oftentimes while you're trying to sleep or perhaps work from home or, oh, I don't know, watch a television show, all of a sudden your cat is now screaming at the top of their lungs and you rush to them and you find out that it's just because that center of the bowl is not completely full, and you can shake their kibble and cover that bowl, and then they're good to go again. There's actually a really specific reason for that. So remember, again, cats don't see very well up close. So when they're eating, they rely heavily on not just their long whiskers, but they have little tiny whiskers along their chin. That's giving them all the information that they need about the prey that they're consuming. So as they're eating through the center of that bowl, it's yum, 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 yum. And then all of a sudden those whiskers don't feel kibble anymore and they're not full yet. So cue the panic. Because even as they back up a step, that bowl and that kibble is kind of blurry. So they're not really certain if there's anything in there, and they just want to make sure that you come and check for them. And if we just even out that kibble, then they feel a lot more content. Now, we often just see this phenomena with cats that are accustomed to grazing. So this is a little bit of a behavioral disorder that's developed from unnatural feeding techniques. So we can eliminate some of that by setting our cats up for success and providing them with specific meal times where they consume an appropriate portion of food for that time, and then the bowl goes away and it comes back again for a secondary meal. Okay, so that is the end of my cat presentation. I believe I saw the screen light up a couple of times, so I'm sure we've got some questions. Let's see what I can do to answer them for you. All right. All right, so let's see here. First question, what instinct makes my cat paw at the floor, cabinet walls, around her food dish when she finishes eating? That is an excellent question. And that is actually the same instinct that requires our cats to groom so extensively after they're eating. They're trying to hide the scent of prey from their environment. So that all goes back to our cats being both predator and prey animals in a natural environment. So once she's consumed her food, she's trying to hide the evidence so that way she doesn't attract other predators to the area. So if we were in a natural environment, that would be her actually kicking dirt over, say, any spilled blood, if you will, from her kill. But since she doesn't have that outlet, she's just going to start rubbing the environment around her. So that's an emulated digging motion, and it also is her smearing her own personal scent around to try to cover up any scent of her prey that she just consumed. Okay, let's see here. Next question, any tips for encouraging play? My cat, who is a 3-year-old's female Siamese mix, is just not into toys. So I've tried several wand toys, catnip toys, balls, lasers, etc. She rarely gets into it. She does not react to catnip or silver. Yeah, my cat doesn't either, and it's kind of a bummer. She has energy and seeks out attention from me a lot, but I can't seem to help her get that energy out. She has a cat tree by a window for her cat TV. Okay, so perfect. Awesome. Also great job putting a cat tree by the window so she can watch cat TV. That is very important to her well-being. You can also spice that up a little bit. I do this for my cat, and I actually move the windows around my house, so she has to find it, but I'll hang bird feeders right outside the window, so it's even more entertaining for her. So with the toys, I would say, since you seem like you've tried a lot of different types and she's rarely getting into it, we're probably not getting her at her high energy peaks. So I would pay attention to the energy level in your house and try to play with her, even if it's just for short bursts when you're most active. So sometimes it's not always convenient for us because some of our most active times are in the morning when we're getting ready for work and school. But if you can carve out even just 2 to 5 minutes to give your cat a quick play sesh, and maybe even do it again when everybody arrives home at the end of the day, you might see that she's more willing to engage in play. So without knowing her personally, my instinct would be that she probably is just, or you're probably trying to invoke play with her when her energy balloon is just a little bit deflated. So I would look and see, even for her personal schedule, when does she seem most active, and then try to engage in play there. But you're doing a great job by providing her with a lot of different options. One thing that I always recommend, I love wand toys. My favorite one is actually the Jackson Galaxy wand toy because it has a variety of different attachments that you can use. So you can also spice their life up a little bit. I have one for my cat, and she has an attachment that looks like a butterfly. She has one that looks like a beetle. She has another one that's got an assortment of feathers on it. So even when we play, I change those out periodically so she can hunt different prey, which is her preference. For your cat, she might be a specialist, so you'll have to play around until you find that one thing that she really wants to chase. But then again, just try to play with her during her high energy times. Okay. So let's see here. We have 2 one-year-old cats who have been very bonded since birth. Our male cat spent the night at the vet this weekend and required a bath upon his return home. Our female cat completely rejected them, or him, excuse me. We have kept them separated unless supervised and tried to do a lot of scent transfer. And things are much better today, but our female cat will occasionally hiss and swipe at our male cat, even when they have been playing together nicely for several minutes. How long should we expect this behavior to continue? Will things go back to normal? We have never seen one hiss at the other before this. Excellent question, and a very common concern. So you are not alone there. Because cats rely so heavily on that personal scent, when that's eliminated, and especially when there's been distance between them, so even if it was overnight and they were split up, that can cause a breakdown in their bond. That's not uncommon. So what I would recommend is you want to try to reintroduce them, which might seem odd since they obviously grew up together, but we need to start that introduction process again. And it looks like you keep them separated unless supervised. That's great. I would actually recommend keeping them separated for a couple of days and allow your boy to have some time to groom himself, get his personal scent back in order, and allow them to sniff and reacclimate under the door first. And then you can slowly start to reintroduce, just like you would if you were bringing a brand new cat into the home. So I would do a couple days completely separated, and while they're separated, you can actually alternate them. So say you have a spare bedroom and your boy is in there. Then when you're home, you can actually swap them out and put the girl in there, let her re-familiarize herself with his scent, and then let him into the main part of the house where he can rub around and start to spread his personal scent everywhere, to kind of remark some of his territory. So that's a good way to kind of scent swap as well. And then when you are bringing them back out together, give them some structured activities. So allow them to eat, not necessarily right next to each other, but maybe in the same room, provide them the distance so they feel comfortable to eat their food, and then immediately engage them in some play. Or better yet, vice versa, get them playing first and then feed them in the same room. And then when those activities and that structure is gone, resume the separation. I would say continue that for a couple of days, and then you're likely going to find that their bond will be reestablished. They're just going to need some hand holding, or paw holding, better yet, to get them there. But that is a very common occurrence, so you are not alone, and this is not unusual for cats. But I think you're doing a great job by keeping them separated. But I would just recommend switching them around in the room so they can spread their own scents throughout the house. And then when they are together, give them structured activities so they're not overly focused on what each other is doing. And that should help you out. I would expect them, since they have been together their whole lives, that in a couple of days with that structured activity, that you should see them returning back to normal. Okay, let's see here. So is the hairless breed natural or human created? That one is 100% human created. Just like in our wild cat, so even if you think of the large cat species that we're most familiar with, they all have a short fur coat. Some are denser than others if they live in colder climates, but they're all short. Any variation from that for medium, long hair, or hairless, that is all human influence. So when we have done any sort of artificial selection for our cats, it's almost all been for aesthetic reasons. And those are some of the choices that we made when we were selectively breeding cats. We were looking for coat length or complete lack of coat. But that is definitely a human creation. But good question. Okay. Let's see here. What does it mean when my cat gets snippy when pet at, pet in a certain area? I think there's a typo, but I think it's a certain area, and the vet hasn't found any issues. So that's not uncommon. So again, cats are really tactily sensitive. So most cats are going to have particular areas that they don't like touched. For many cats, over the top of the head is not a comfortable area. Bellies are typically off limits. And then a lot of times somewhere around the center of the back is usually a no-go zone as well, and their paws. Some of that has to do with the excess of nerve endings that they have there, and some of it is all just instinctual response. So they're going to protect the areas that they can't defend well on their own or that they need to survive. So that's why cats can be particularly touchy about us handling their paws. They need those to get away. They need those to hunt. So they want us to steer clear of them because they want to protect them. Around their back and the top of their head, that's an area that they feel is vulnerable. So they usually will react negatively when we try to pet. So my best advice for that is just get to know your cat. We don't need to pet them everywhere. So provide them that agency. Cat's telling you that they don't care for it in that area. So we can just respect their space and pet them in areas that they find pleasing. Okay, let's see. Our tricolor caught and ate an adult housefly. Is that a problem? Absolutely not. So congratulate your cat for superb hunting skills. My cat has been chasing a fly in my house for at least a week unsuccessfully. So maybe we need your cat to visit and have her give my cat some tips. But that is absolutely not a problem. If your cat was consuming large amounts of insects for some reason, I can't think of a circumstance where that would occur, but there might be some concerns with a buildup of pesticides, but an occasional housefly or two won't do them any harm. So absolutely go ahead and let your cat hunt and consume. That's just some nice cheap enrichment for them and should provide some amusing watching for you as well. Okay, let's see. About an hour before my cat gets fed, she's very cuddly, but she also likes to gently bite my nose. What is that about? So I would assume as she's cuddling you and rubbing on you, you're probably petting. So those gentle bites are just soft warnings that she needs a little hands off time, which I know is going to seem weird because she probably does that and then rubs her face right against you. It's just that 1 second, hands off, please. And now continue. So we see cats do that quite a bit. My cat does that frequently. So she will actively be rubbing on me and then applying her teeth and then immediately rubbing again. She's just asking for a small second break before we recommence with the cuddles. Okay, let's see here. Let's see. Oh, I'm crazy about you posture is accompanied by the rear legs stomping alternatively. Yes, it can be. So some cats do that, some cats do not. But you may see cats vibrate their tail and almost do like a little tap dance with their back legs. That is definitely just an abundance of excitement that you are there. So when your cats do that, be pleased because it's hard to get cats to love us that much. So if you have accomplished that level of relationship, you are doing something right. Definitely keep at it. All right, let's see here. Our small cat, when she was a kitten, would run to the window during a thunderstorm and watch the light show. She was not bothered by the thunder. Now she runs under the bed. She is 5. Yes, that is not uncommon. So just like with humans, a lot of times when we are toddlers, we are not inherently afraid of a lot. And then as we get older and wiser, we learn fear as well to protect ourselves. So cats are generally less sensitive to noise and sights when they are younger. Part of that is because they haven't learned any better yet, so they don't have a lot of self-preservation instincts. And part of it is because their senses are not fully developed. So there's a lot of animals, not just cats, but dogs too, for example, that I work with, where owners are perplexed because they, all through kittendom or puppydom, they were fine with thunderstorms, and now they're having anxiety attacks when there's thunder or fireworks. A lot of times that is because when they are younger, their sense of hearing is not as well developed, so they aren't bothered by the sound because they don't hear it as well. And once they do, they start to hide. We can certainly help our animals with that by habituating them to the sound. I always recommend everybody go to YouTube for that. There are a number of videos that you can play which will have pleasing sounds like classical music, for example. And then very softly in the background, you'll hear the sound of a thunderstorm moving through or fireworks. And you can provide your cat some positive reinforcement. So play that video, make sure it's kept on the portion where the thunderstorm is very discreet, at least at first, and then provide them their yummy meal right there. And then you can slowly let the video play on over the course of a couple days and let that sound get a little louder while still providing them that positive reinforcement. And you'll find that your cat is less reactive to thunderstorms in the long run with a little bit of commitment. But that is typically why we see a change in behavior as animals age. Their senses just become a little more finely tuned, so they hear, feel, and see things a little more clearly. And then just like any animal, as we reach adulthood, we just have stronger self-preservation instincts. Okay, let's see here. Let's see, why do they talk to us with high-pitched sounds? Sometimes I copy and do it back to them and they do it again. Let's see, same cat if lying down will immediately roll so I can pet belly, but only once or twice, and then doesn't like it anymore. Yep, so the belly thing is common. So that is just overstimulation. Again, they've got a lot of nerve endings there, so 1 or 2 pets and we're good. That's also why I always recommend the pet pause. So pet twice, then give them a break and see if they solicit the attention again. For a lot of cats in a lot of areas, especially highly sensitive ones like a belly, 1 or 2 pets is all they need, and then they're good to go. With those high-pitched sounds, it's actually something that's kind of unique with cats. They talk to us using the same language they would use to talk to kittens. So when you see 2 cats interact with each other, they may growl, they may hiss, but they don't do a whole lot of meowing back and forth at each other. Those are sounds that they have actually developed almost exclusively to communicate with us. They also will use similar sounds to communicate to very young kittens. And a lot of that is because they perceive us to be naked cats that don't hunt very well. So they reserve their gentlest, highest pitched sounds for us. And part of it is also a learned behavior, because when they do it, it's really stinking cute. When my cat gives me her squeaks, I also emulate and squeak right back to her. So it's a learned behavior for her as well, because she knows if she wants attention, if she squeaks, I squeak, and then we engage with each other. So she's learned to do that when she wants to solicit attention, and your cat probably has as well. Okay, let's see here. My former feral male cat, there we go, cries after every meal. He is about 9 and he has been an indoor cat only for about 6 years now. He gets his full portion of dry food split up into 3 separate meals. Kudos, I like that. Is it because he does not feel full? So it could be that he does not feel full. So that is a possibility. So with that, not knowing brand of kibble, size of cat, things like that, you might want to explore and make sure you are feeding an appropriate amount. It might be a semi-learned behavior. So he cries to see if he can get some attention from you, or perhaps solicit a few extra morsels. So if that's worked in the past, that's a behavior that can persist for a really long time. It also could be him demonstrating excitement. So he's been able to catch, kill, eat now, and he's consumed his food. That might be a little bit of a victory cry from him as well. So we definitely can see cats sometimes after they've completed that eat portion of their cycle have a little bit of an energy boost because they're just feeling pretty elated that they actually got to consume some food. So it could be any of those combinations. If you were concerned about him not getting enough, of course, my recommendation first and foremost is always to confer with your veterinarian just to make sure that all of his nutritional needs are being met. So let's see here. Looks like, are scratching posts beneficial for cats, even for declawed ones? Absolutely. So scratching posts are essential for cats, even declawed ones. So scratching is an inherent instinctive behavior that cats absolutely must demonstrate for physical and mental health. And not only do they scratch to sharpen and manage the length of their claws, as they scratch, they are also spreading their personal scent. So that is a way that they mark territory. So I would definitely say scratching apparatus should definitely be supplied to all cats. They can be posts, but there are also mats and pads and all sorts of different scratching configurations that you can purchase. And cats typically, but not always, will demonstrate preferences for that as well. So some cats are vertical scratchers, where they like to stand on their hind legs and reach above themselves and scratch. Some cats are horizontal scratchers, scratchers, where they want to stretch forward in sort of a downward dog pose and scratch. So you definitely want to identify what your cat preferences are, but even declawed cats will appreciate having that option available to them and will utilize it. So I would definitely recommend that, even if your cat is in fact declawed. Okay, let's see here. I have 2 cats, and one or the other has to always follow me into the bathroom, even if they were sleeping. Is there an instinct that causes them to do this? Yes. So it is, well, one is just general nosiness. Cats are busybodies by nature. But yes, it is. When we use the bathroom, as unappealing and as gross as it might sound to us, that is when our personal scent is strongest. So it is super appealing to the cats that love us so much, because they love the way that we smell. So they're going to come in and inhale all of our scent. I know it's a little gross for us, but for them, that's true love. So they are just wanting to engage with you. Also, that's an activity time for us. So we might be watching TV or sleeping, and all of a sudden we're up and we're moving. Cats are going to follow. So they're going to rev their energy up right alongside us, and they're going to come along as well. And some cats, if your cat is like mine, are also tissue paper thieves. So my cat loves to come running in there to see if she can grab toilet paper out of people's hands. So your cat may also be inclined, because they've got a little bit of a toy preference going on, for the tissue, but more often than not, it's because of that scent attraction, and then because of our energy level rising as we move to the bathroom. They're just matching that by following you. Okay, let's see. What about a cat that nibbles my calf for attention? Okay, so that is 100% a learned behavior. You stood by your cat, walked past your cat, and they gave you a nibble, which could have been attention motivated, or it could have been irritation. I don't know the original cause, but whatever it was, it got your attention. So they thought that was pretty cool. They try it again, and if they're getting your attention consistently every time, it is a reinforced learned behavior. So now they know if they seek attention, that little nibble nibble gets your eyes on them, and probably gets them some pets as well. So that is probably a behavior that will persist. If it's something that's bothersome, the best way to create extinction in that behavior, where we get the cat to cease, is you have to cease the attention. So if there's any nibbling, you just want to immediately remove yourself from your cat's area, so they learn that that nibble is not an effective way to get attention. But if you don't mind, and you find it adorable, then absolutely continue to encourage it and give your cat that attention that they're desiring. But that is 100% a learned behavior. So the cat learned to nibble to get some affection. Let's see here. My kitty does the "I'm crazy about you" tale frequently. Awesome. I got her from DCACC about 11 years. Well, thank you for adopting from us. I super appreciate that. And I am so glad that your cat is that crazy about you. So definitely keep up the good work. If you're getting "I'm crazy about you" tale, you are doing things correctly, and keep going. And thank you for being such a loving cat parent to a DCAS cat. All right, let's see here. Our tortoiseshell female hides most of her day in our office, and there hasn't been an explanation as why, even though she's the friendliest out of our 2 cats. So that might mean that your cat is inherently a cave dweller. So cats will have preferences in the locations where they like to rest. Most like a higher perch, but there are some, and still a fair number, that prefer to go down and under. So my first concern when I hear that is that there's a confidence issue with the cat. But if you're saying that she is the friendliest and the more outgoing of your 2, then I wouldn't be as concerned about that. And I would just say it has a lot more to do with personal preferences. And that's okay. So as long as she is a happy, healthy cat, otherwise, if she prefers to be under things, or in a particular room, then I would just let her be, and that's okay. It could be there's something in there that's drawing her, maybe a particular window or a scent in there. If that's an area where you spend a lot of your time and your personal scent is strong there, she may also want to leave a lot of her scent there as well, if she has that bond with you, which it sounds like she probably does. So there's a couple different reasons for that, but as long as she's otherwise healthy and happy, I would just chalk it up to some of her personal preferences. Okay, let's see. Hold on here. Our large cat came up to me on the sofa while we were watching TV. He puts his paws on my arm like he's trying to get my attention. Why? He really does not want much petting. Well, he actually just might want some of your attention, but not the petting. So cats can enjoy enrichment from us in other ways. So it could be that he's just looking for your eye contact. It could be that he's looking for you to speak to him. It might be that he's looking for those 1 or 2 pets that he does like. So you just want to meet him at his level and give him whatever attention it is that he's asking for, and then allow him that agency to move away when he is all done. He also may be trying to share his personal scent with you. So cats will often, again, they scratch a lot to spread their scent, but they'll also just rub their paw pad. So if they step on you or if they need it all when they come up to you, a lot of times that's their way of just sharing their personal scent with you. So it could just be his way of dropping by to say, hey, I like you, you're pretty okay. So we just allow them to do that. And again, give him whatever attention is that he does tolerate, and then just allow him to walk away when he's done. But it sounds like he's probably just trying to engage with you in whatever way he knows how to. Okay, let's see here. I inherited a Siamese from my divorce. Were these cats used for guarding royals in the Far East? This cat would go nuts if some animals were outside the house. They were. So they were used not so much as guards, because cats are largely ineffective as protection, but as alarm systems. So they tend to alert pretty vigorously if they sense an intruder, which of course for our cats in our households could be a squirrel in our yard, but that is definitely something that we did selectively breed for in the Siamese cat. So that's an excellent observation of the cat that you have in your house. Okay, let's see. My new 1-year-old kitten purrs, then puts her head down. I'm assuming that this is a happy cat posture. Is that true? Absolutely. So it sounds like if she's purring and she's putting her head down, she's showing you with her body how content and relaxed that she is. So definitely take that as a compliment that you have such a confident, relaxed cat in your home. You're definitely doing something right with her, and you want to keep up that good work. But that head down is definitely I'm relaxed and I'm pleased to be in your company posture for cats. So that's excellent to see.